Hello, and thank you for watching this presentation about the TOEFL Primary Reading and Listening Tests. This presentation will introduce Educational Testing Service, or ETS, the TOEFL family of assessments, and the TOEFL Primary tests. We will describe the test purposes, design, and how it can be used in classrooms. The test content will be described, followed by information about scoring and how score reports help teachers, parents, and students. Finally, the presentation concludes with an overview of the teacher and parent support available for the TOEFL primary tests. Educational Testing Service is a global leader in designing educational assessments. It is our mission to provide fair and valid assessments that measure knowledge and skills needed in school and in the workplace. Our assessments support education worldwide, and it is our privilege to introduce you to the TOEFL primary tests. The TOEFL primary tests are part of the TOEFL family of assessments, which includes the TOEFL IBT, TOEFL ITP, and TOEFL Junior tests. These tests support students in their journey learning English and using English for educational purposes, whether that journey is in elementary school, middle school, high school, or colleges and universities. Each TOEFL test is designed for a particular use and language proficiency. Suggested age ranges are provided, but test use and proficiency level are more important factors to consider when selecting an appropriate TOEFL test. TOEFL primary tests provide a snapshot of student abilities as they learn English. Teachers can use the tests to monitor student progress, set goals for student learning, and place students in the appropriate level of instruction. The TOEFL primary tests also help teachers communicate to parents about student progress and areas for improvement. All TOEFL tests are designed based on quality, professional research. TOEFL Primary was designed with young children in mind. We studied curricula from many regions: East Asia, the Middle East, Europe, South America, and North America, and based the test on what was common to all these curricula. So the TOEFL Primary tests are not based on or limited to any specific curricula. We also conducted research in various countries to determine how long the test should be, which skill areas needed to be tested, and how to make the test interesting and motivating for young learners. At each step along the way, distinguished researchers from ETS and leaders in the field of language testing from major universities reviewed the test design. Students all over the world start learning English at different ages. These students are learning in different schools and at different paces. Some are studying English maybe only 1 or 2 hours a week, and other students study English every day. TOEFL primary tests are intended for students as young as 8 years old who have been studying English for about 1 year or more. There are 2 proficiency levels for the reading and listening tests, Step 1 and Step 2. Reading and listening Step 1 is for students at the beginning stages of learning English. Reading and listening Step 2 is for students with higher English proficiency. Reading and listening Step 1 is a paper and pencil test. Students read or listen to test passages and questions in the test book and mark their answers on a separate answer sheet. The test is all multiple choice questions. Both the reading and listening tests have example questions at the beginning of each part of the test so that students can practice following the directions and marking on their answer sheets. The reading test has 36 questions and 3 examples. Students have about 30 minutes to complete the reading section. The listening section has 36 questions and 5 examples. Students listen to a CD with the passages and questions. Many of the questions have picture options, and do not require students to read the questions. Other questions are both printed in the test book and read aloud to students on the recording. Like Step 1, Reading and Listening Step 2 is also a paper and pencil test with a test book and a separate answer sheet. The questions are multiple choice. The reading test has 36 questions and 1 example. Students have about 30 minutes to complete the reading section. The listening section has 36 questions and 3 examples. Students listen to a CD with the passages and questions. All of the listening questions have picture options or are both printed in the test book and read aloud to students on the recording. TOEFL Primary test content is based on a set of communication goals. These are the same as the goals of many English curricula for young students around the world. For example, many young students learn to read personal emails and letters, so TOEFL Primary reading tests include short correspondence texts on appropriate topics and at the appropriate level. One of the listening communication goals is understanding spoken directions and procedures, so TOEFL Primary tests include spoken directions similar to those that students hear from their teachers in school. Reading Step 1 tests students' abilities to understand a range of English texts. Texts begin at the word and simple sentence level and progress up to paragraphs. This is one of the simplest texts on Step 1 reading. This item allows students to show their knowledge of basic vocabulary and sentence grammar. This passage and question from Step 1 reading is an example of an item that tests comprehension of a group of 3 to 4 simple sentences. This question type is set up as a clue game, which helps to raise student engagement and motivation during the test. Listening Step 1 includes a range of listening texts, from simple words, sentences, and short teacher directions, to conversations and phone messages. The questions are designed to be accessible to students who may just be beginning to read in English. Many of the questions have picture options, and all written questions and options are read aloud to students on the recording. Here is an example of a Step 1 listening question. In this question type, students listen to instructions given by a teacher and mark the answer that corresponds to what the teacher said. Passages on Step 2 reading are longer than passages on Step 1 and may include less familiar vocabulary and more complex grammatical structures. These longer passages include sets of written instructions, stories of interest to young students, and short paragraphs about academic topics. Academic paragraphs are similar to what students might read in textbooks or on signs in museum exhibits. The longest passages on Step 2 are about 250 words long. Here is an example of a Step 2 reading question. In this question type, students read an email and answer questions based on what they read. Step 2 listening includes less familiar vocabulary and grammatical structures in the form of teacher directions, conversations, and messages, but they are longer listening texts than those in Step 1. And the test also includes stories and teacher lectures on academic topics. The lectures are on topics appropriate for young students, and they also match to the students' listening proficiency levels. Here is an example of a Step 2 listening question. In this question type, students listen to a phone conversation and answer questions based on what they heard. The TOEFL Primary score reports provide different types of information about student proficiencies. The first piece of information is the level. On Step 1, levels are shown as stars. On Reading and Listening Step 2, levels are shown as badges. The TOEFL Primary score reports also provide score descriptors and next steps, scale scores, and students' abilities in relation to the Common European Framework of Reference, or CEFR, and Lexile measures. Score descriptors provide meaningful information for each section, including recommendations on next steps that students can take to improve their English language abilities. Each level has a set of descriptors. The example here shows the descriptors for 4 stars on reading step 1 and 4 stars on listening step 1. The descriptors describe what students are able to do in English based on their test performance. The next steps for each level are suggestions for the ways in which students can improve and move up to the next level. This example is for 4 stars on step 1 reading and 4 stars on step 1 listening. Here is an example of the scoring descriptors and next steps for 5 badges on reading and listening step 2. Reading and listening levels also come with scale scores. Scale scores help to show student progress within a level, especially if they take TOEFL Primary more than once within a short period of time. Step 1 test takers can earn a scale score of 101 to 109. Step 2 test takers can earn a scale score of 104 to 115. Some students may receive a scale score of 100. These students may be at the very beginning stages of learning English. It is recommended that students who receive a scale score of 100 on step 2 take reading and listening step 1 when they take the TOEFL Primary the next time. TOEFL Primary scores are linked to the CEFR. The CEFR is a widely used tool for understanding language development and proficiency. CEFR descriptors are modified to reflect young language learners' abilities and used to determine the student's proficiency level according to the CEFR levels. Because teachers and parents need to select appropriate reading material for developing readers, TOEFL Primary reading and listening score reports also include a Lexile measure. Lexile measures from Metametrics can be entered into an online database. After the Lexile measure is entered into the database, the student will be asked to choose their interests. After they click Find Books, a list of books based on their reading level and interests will be provided. If they create an account on the site, they will be able to save and update their reading lists at no charge. ETS offers a variety of resources that provide more information about the TOEFL Primary tests, how to use the score reports, how to prepare for the tests, and the process of administering the tests. The TOEFL Primary website contains all the general information about the tests, how they are scored, and how teachers and parents can use the score reports. The Student and Parent Handbook familiarizes students and their parents with what the test book looks like and how to prepare for the test day. It also gives parents more information about the test purposes. The teacher edition of the handbook provides teachers with additional information on how to prepare students for the test day and what they need to do to make the testing process as easy as possible. The English Learning Center provides students with 20 hours of learning content to practice their reading, listening, and speaking skills. It also includes full-length practice reading and listening tests for each of the levels. The administration manual includes all the instructions that teachers need to administer the TOEFL Primary tests. Thank you for your interest in TOEFL Primary. We look forward to answering your questions about how TOEFL Primary can help your students.